Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City of Perth Agenda briefing session for the 21st of April 2020. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Whadjuk Noongar people of Western Australia, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. It is indeed a privilege to be standing on Whadjuk Noongar country. Due to the declaration of the public health emergency and the existence of a state of emergency, tonight's meeting is being held via video conference and live streamed on the City website. CEO, for the benefit of those viewing, could you please give details of who's attending, please, by way of the software?
Thank you, Chair Commissioner. In attendance, we have Deputy Chair Commissioner Gai McMath, Commissioner Len Kosova, myself, Murray Jorgensen, Chief Executive Officer, Bill Parker, General Manager Corporate Services, Anne Banks McAllister, General Manager Community Services, Chris Kopek, General Manager of Infrastructure and Operations, Jason Miragliotta, General Manager Planning and Economic Development, Karen Strachan, Project Director of Corporate Recovery, Michael Kent, Project Director Strategic Finance, Robert Farley, Alliance Manager City Planning, Emma Landers, Alliance Manager Community Services, Tabitha McMullen, Alliance Manager Activation and Cultural Experience, Jason Tan, Alliance Manager Infrastructure and Assets, Daniel High, Alliance Manager Economic Development, Reshma Jamia Bacchus, Acting Alliance Manager Finance, Virginia Withers, Senior Sponsorship Officer, Siobhan Rippington, Governance Coordinator, and Ashley Rutigliano, Governance Officer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CEO. Do we have any apologies for this briefing tonight?
None that I'm aware of, Chair.
Okay. Have you had any disclosures of interest lodged?
No, Chair Commissioner.
Okay, and I understand that there is no matters for which the meeting may be closed. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, moving on then to the reports, and item 6.1 on the agenda is the East End revitalisation and the proposed name for the new public space. Commissioners, any questions, please?
No, Chair, I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Commissioners. Right, moving on to the next item, which is the submission to Development WA on the draft Perth Girls School Design Guidelines. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Chair, Commissioner, I just have a couple of quick ones, if I may.
Certainly. Yeah.
Thank you. So to the GM of Planning and Development and any other relevant city officer in attendance, just a couple of points. I'll run through them quickly, and if I completely accept if they can't be answered or addressed now, I'd be happy to receive further information prior to the council meeting, or if staff see fit to make any additional inclusions in their report to council next week. The first just relates to the massing diagram that is shown on page 11 of the agenda papers. I'll just go to that. I just wanted to flag and hopefully receive some clarification from the officers that that is one of two massing typologies that is included in Figure 8 of Development WA's guidelines for this landmark site. So I just want staff clarification that firstly, there is more than one indicative typology that is included in the guidelines, and secondly, that both of those potential typologies have been assessed in the city's draft submission to Development WA.
Robert Farley, Alliance Manager City Planning. Through you, Commissioner Chair. Yes, that is one of two. There are two proposals within the appendices, and we have considered both.
Thank you for that. Through you, Chair Commissioner, just one or two extra, if I may.
Sure.
On page 13, the third paragraph of the agenda papers, I think staff quite rightly have stated that the planning and design of such important sites should be undertaken through a wider neighbourhood and precinct planning approach to ensure certain things. In that respect, I was interested to understand from the officer's viewpoint what broader community engagement or stakeholder engagement Development WA has undertaken in the preparation of these guidelines, or will it undertake in future as a result of these through formation of these guidelines? And as an extension to that, what is the likely level of community or other stakeholder input that would be invited on a future development proposal for these sites?
Robert Farley, Alliance Manager, City Planning. I would need to take on notice, Commissioners, in terms of Development WA's detail in terms of their engagement. I will also note that the proponents themselves have done considerable engagement with the community in terms of the use of the land, but I don't know whether that has extended into the massing of the development per se. In terms of the development, it would depend on whether it would follow Development WA's proposed how they deal with a development application, or whether the planning authority by that stage has come back to the City of Perth, and then it would depend on who is the planning authority at the time of any development application coming forward, and for what parts as well, in terms of, because what's before the commissioners is the total build out of the future development, and what you will see is a staged development of this site.
Thank you for that, Rob, and nothing further from me, Chair Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McMath?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question that relates to page 11 of the paper. In the paper, we've identified that under the Strategic Community Plan, one of the strategic objectives is 2.2, a growing residential population that enjoys a wide range of density and affordable lifestyle housing options. Are you able to outline and elaborate on how this proposal addresses the need and inclusion of affordable community and social housing?
Robert Farley, Alliance Manager of City Planning. Through you, Chair Commissioner. I'll answer this in two parts, if I may. I will take part of this on notice to get further clarification and provide it to Commissioners. However, as part of the requirements of Development WA's planning framework, they do require the provision of affordable housing options, not social housing, but affordable housing options to be included to enable the developer to go up to an 8:1 plot ratio, because they are proposing a 7:1, but with certain additional things, they can go up to 8:1 on the northern sites. So, but in terms of more detail, I'd like to get more information and provide it to Commissioners prior to the next council meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner McMath. Okay, thanks for that, Rob. Good stuff. Moving on to the next item 6.3, the COVID-19 Quick Response Community Grant Program. Do Commissioners have any questions on that, please?
No, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioners. Moving on now to item 6.4, the East Perth Community Group Matched Funding Grant. Do Commissioners have any questions on that?
No, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioners. Item item 6.5, the contributed asset approval, Perth City Link, King Street to Management Walk.
Chair Commissioner, I just have a couple of questions, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. To the relevant GM or other appropriate city staff, in the financial implications table on page 29, just forgive me, I'll just skip to that. Oh yeah, so the financial implications table at the bottom of page 29 identifies various asset classes, the Development WA estimated construction cost, and then City of Perth estimated operating/maintenance expenses per annum. I just wanted to double check if A, it's a requirement of our asset management planning and or the policy that's quoted in the report and or just custom and practice at the city to also have regard not only to the estimated operating maintenance cost, but also to, if it's not factored into that annual cost, the whole of life cycle cost, as well as long-term asset renewal, upgrade or replacement. I don't know if those broader longer-term costs have been annualised into the per annum expenses that are denoted in that particular table. So just some clarification on that would be appreciated.
Through the chair, Chris Kopic, General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations. I'll answer in two parts. I'll invite Jason Tan to throw in some ideas as well. But in answer to your original question, the operating and maintenance expenses are just that, the operation and maintenance only, is my understanding. They don't include any depreciated amounts to try and annualise that. I would probably have to defer to Jason Tan now, though, to get the explanation of where the depreciation value is potentially captured. So maybe over to Jason.
Jason Tan here, Alliance Manager, Infrastructure and Assets. One line that is in the body of the report, which might answer your question, is that these costs do not include the replacement cost of these assets at the end of their useful life. This is mainly because most of the time we do not replace like for like at the end of the useful life. The new design could be vastly more or less expensive than what is currently there. Over the life, and these are very long life assets, you know, probably 40 years or so, the annual operating and maintenance expenses would be the vast majority, you know, 90 or 95% of the whole of life cost. This is why we report it in this fashion currently.
Through the chair, thank you for that. That's very useful. And sorry, I was a complete oversight if I've missed that section of the report. The second question I have is just again for clarification and emphasis purposes. Some of the areas that are being handed over incorporate underground, on-ground and overhead infrastructure, and just confirming that all of those aspects have indeed been taken into account, given that we're obviously dealing with the very general asset classes in that financial table.
Yes, Jason Tan here again. Through the chair, yes, most of every asset will fit into one of those asset class categories you see there. It's just kept at a higher level, just for brevity, I guess.
So, thank you. And through the chair, final question for me just relates to the last paragraph on page 27. So that's the last paragraph in the background section that makes reference to the application of policy 9.15. Perhaps a question to the GM in terms of the practicalities moving forward, given the scale and value of assets that Development WA contributes and which are consequently handed over to the city, whether or not that sum needs to be recast in light of the value of those assets, or if there is a more practical approach to administer that, because quite frankly, I'm not entirely sure that whether commissioners or elected members are necessarily going to be best placed to determine the quality of the asset as constructed, its compliance with relevant technical standards and specifications, and therefore its acceptability for receipt and inclusion within our own asset register. So I'd just be interested to understand staff's experience on the practicalities of the limitations that policy applies.
Through the chair, Chris Kopek again. Yeah, initially this report was written twofold, and one of that was to change the content of that policy, acknowledging that it was probably flawed in its use of council or commissioners at this point in the process, right at the end. You'll note that at the end of the report, I was just going to scroll to the page number. We talk about bringing another report to council in the near future, which would be an amendment to that policy to involve council at the beginning of the process to where they could add the most value as to the assets they would like to see constructed, and therefore almost automatically accepted at this point in time, leaving all of the technical issues to the officers following the process that's quite robust, which they currently do. So yes, totally agree with what you're saying, and that will be coming to council fairly shortly.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, nothing further from me.
Thank you. Commissioner McMath.
No questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Look, I've got a couple, Chris. I've actually never seen a policy like this. The first question is if this type of infrastructure comes as part of a condition of development and it is built in accordance with the plans and specifications, can the city say, no, we don't want it?
Chair, probably not, which is the discussion we've been having at officer level the last week as well.
So yes. That, in my view, that makes an absolute folly of this policy, and the council, in my view, has certainly a role to play, as Len says, in determining the type of infrastructure or quality or whatever style that's provided at the front end of the process. But even that is subject to review and appeal and all sorts of things. In this case, I'd be very, very keen to not have this policy reviewed, but to have this policy deleted on the basis that our asset management policy should cover this type of thing, and that's something obviously that everybody's nodding in agreement with. So we could deal with that sooner rather than later. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any further questions, or do you have any feedback from that, Chris or Jason?
Not other than to totally agree with your comments.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 6.6, which is the financial activity statement for the period ended 29th of February 2020. And do I have any questions, please?
No, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioners. Payments from the municipal fund. Do I have any questions on that?
No, Chair, no questions.
Thank you. Item 6.8, payments from the municipal fund of March 2020.
No, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6.9, the City of Perth draft policy framework, which is fantastic to see. This has been out for consult and back ready to deal with. So do commissioners have any questions?
No, Chair. Thank you.
None for me. So that's good. On that basis, unless the CEO has any other issues that require raising?
No, Chair, Commissioner.
Thank you, CEO. On that basis, I would thank everyone in attendance and declare the meeting closed at 5:25 p.m. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Thank you.